Hello, hello. I hope that you're well. So, I wanted to talk today about the bit in the middle because as I've been speaking about it more and more, often I hear people say to me, well, I'm not quite sure that fits me, or I can't quite see how my bit in the middle is the same as somebody else's bit in the middle, and etc., etc. And what I want to say first and foremost is that the bit in the middle is unique to the individual. It is unique to your story. And what I really want to do is help people to understand when they are in the bit in the middle so that they don't question themselves, so they don't rip up everything that they've been building, so that they don't doubt who they are and what it is that they are wanting to put out into the world. And I think it's really important to also say that the bit in the middle is very much for any stage of life, right? It isn't just for business, it's for relationships, it's for motherhood, it's for being creative. It's anything that requires us to be more in the world so that we are contributing to the human story. And so, as I've been doing more and more work on the bit of the middle and actually bringing it into the world as something that I'm incredibly passionate about, this really started actually from my own journey. And my own journey has been very, very bumpy. And I've had much success, and I've also had moments where things have cycled. And I always found myself in this bit in the middle. And no matter where I looked, I couldn't quite find the answers maybe I was looking for. And it was so frustrating. Like I knew that I could do more. I knew that what it was that I thought I wanted, but I couldn't quite find the answers. And everywhere I looked, I could see all the excitement and inspiration that comes with starting something. So whether that's a new relationship, whether it's having a baby, whether it's building a gorgeous business, right? There's all this excitement and this high energy around it. And then sometimes, often what will happen is it will plateau, right? There is this moment where it feels like it's plateauing. And that is actually where this thing that you have brought into your life, into your story, is embedding itself into the world. And then as we then go through the plateau season, depending on the changes we make during that season, will then determine kind of like the outcome, right? Is it a healthy relationship? Are you going to have a healthy relationship with your child? Are you going to build something that's really meaningful and contributes, to the world? And that is all determined by literally this piece in the middle. And, sometimes I think over history, we've called the middle kind of like whether it's midlife, this moment where, people kind of used to call it midlife crisis, where people used to dig things up and actually maybe change their identity and who they were being. There are lots and lots of types of stories. We talk about menopause for women, etc., as something that occurs to our bodies as we go through midlife, right? So there is a lot of change that happens in the bit in the middle. And this isn't, again, I'll just stress, this isn't just for business, it is for life in general. And you will find that things come knocking for you throughout your life. And the bit in the middle is a place we return to over and over again. And what I'd like to do today is to talk about what happens within that phase, what happens in the bit in the middle. And there'll be some things where it will take time to move through, right? It will take time to move through this kind of cycle that happens in the bit in the middle so you can come out the other end. Sometimes you pop back in, you do something, you get what you need, and you pop back out. But it is a phase in our life that we often come back to. So what I've been doing recently is really thinking about what is that cycle that happens. And I am somebody who has the incarnation cross of the Raxa restoration, and that probably doesn't mean anything to you, but it basically means that my essence is very, very good at putting things back in its place. And I don't just mean like organizational and tidy, right? I have a very tidy home. Um, and a tidy world, right? It isn't just about that, but it's helping you to remember what you have forgotten. And as I say this, you might go, oh, okay, but normally it's something that you feel. And so, as I was kind of working through the restoration and what that sort of looked like and that entire cycle, and something that resonates hugely with me is the hero's journey. This idea that an idea comes in, we embark on this journey, and as we go through this journey, we meet different people, we are challenged, we become victorious, and then we return back to the end point richer with the experience for having started. And so, knowing how passionate about I am about all of these things, I really took some time to think about, well, what happens in the bit in the middle? And actually, what ended up being created or actually came and fell out of me was really the cycle of the human story. And I will do more videos talking about these things in depth. And depending on where you sit in terms of your own beliefs, your own spirituality, how you exist in the world, it may resonate with you at different levels. So I encourage you always to take what resonates and leave the rest. And as my favorite saying goes, sift and sort. But today I'm going to talk about what happens in the bit in the middle. And I've got my beautiful book here because I've been writing it all down. And I feel like I want to make sure that I don't really miss anything. So normally when we enter the bit in the middle, it is because we have started something. So whether it is an internal journey, i.e. you started wanting to look at your own internal beliefs, whether it's a new relationship, whether it's a new layer or level in your relationship, whether it's a relationship with your business or you're starting something in your business, whether you're entering motherhood, whether you're expanding your creativity and wanting to try something new, leadership also, anything really, your own personal kind of growth journey, you are starting something, right? And now the initial excitement has begun to wane. And you kind of started asking yourself, what's next? And I always think that this is kind of the triggers question that then helps us to enter the bit in the middle. And normally, what happens is that we start to question, am I doing the right thing? Or I'm not quite sure I feel as passionate about this. Should I stay with it? Do I need to actually do something else? Do I need to take a detour? Or I need to go and speak to 100 different people about it? And all of those questions are very valid, right? But the way that we answer them will depend on the outcome that we take, right? So they are all very healthy questions and they are all very, very, very human, which, I think that's one of the most important things is to remember as well, is that we are living out our own individual stories, part of the human story, right? And so everything we experience is very, very, very human. There is nothing wrong with anybody. We are at this moment the highest expression of who we are. And I feel like I really want to kind of make sure that comes across. And it's something I'm incredibly passionate about, is that we start from our highest expression, not from our trauma. Because if we start from our trauma and we bring that into our current day, right, and we behave from our trauma, then actually what we end up getting out will end up being essentially more trauma, right? But if we can take the story of our trauma, if we can take the questions, if we can feel brave enough to ask those questions of ourselves and bring them into the middle and do the work, then we'll find that that story still exists and it's still part of the person that sits in front of you today, right? But actually it doesn't own and dominate the story. And I think that's really, really important. Now, there are lots of people talking about nervous system regulation, beliefs, there's human design, spirituality, what to do, what not to do about building a business. We're seeing more and more people bring in the feminine and the masculine energetics and balancing them both in order to grow and build something meaningful. And all of those things happen in the bit in the middle. So when we enter the bit in the middle, as I said, we start asking these questions. And I think realizing that and thinking about that, what is my trigger? What is the moment that I actually start realizing that this thing that I started feels less exciting? Or actually, I'm starting to want to know the answers to more of maybe who I am or my life or what it is that I'm doing. I want clarity. Or look, I've got my business this far, but I want now the next level. What's next, right? And that very question is what then starts the entire process of the bit in the middle. Now, the bit in the middle is actually comprises of different steps. There are 7 different steps that happens within the cycle, and it isn't something you consciously move through. It is something that happens. And I'm going to talk about that now. And just as I'm talking, as I said, take what resonates, leave the rest, maybe leave room for reflection as well. And see if you can identify yourself in terms of the different stages, if anything kind of feels familiar or maybe not, right, as well, because that's all feedback. And I love the idea that this is cyclical because much like the hero's journey, much like this cycle of restoration of the human story, I think, it is cyclical. It isn't something that has a start and an end, and it isn't clean. It isn't linear. Life's. We have many different people in our lives. We have many different versions of stories in our lives. We have very different skill sets, and we are uniquely us. And because of that, I like to think of everything as a cycle, which means every stage I enter into my life is feedback. I literally take it as practical as something like that. And I can take that now because I have a regulated nervous system. I have done the work. And that doesn't mean that that work is finite and it has stopped. I still continue to do the work because as you peel back one layer, the next layer reveals itself. And you're always given in the moment what it is that you can handle. And if you start to notice more things like the bit in the middle or more spirituality type stuff or people talking about business and maybe at a different level to where you're at the moment, right? All of those things are coming into your awareness because you are now ready to be able to explore that within your bit in the middle, right? So the question starts, what's next? We enter the bit in the middle and then what happens? Well, this is where we start to seek essentially clarity. And what happens is that the immediate thing that's going to happen is that the question has originated from essentially an idea. Now, depending on where you sit, like in terms of spirituality and things like that, I like to think of this as source, as the universe, as consciousness, all these kind of wonderful things. But wherever you think ideas, etc., originate from, that is what has created the question, what's next, right? And what happens is that then moves you into the bit in the middle and you'll start to become aware. You may suddenly wake up in the middle of the night with a thought. You may suddenly have a download or an inspired thought that you need to write down. And it may not necessarily be related to the thing that you are thinking about. It may just be something a little bit different, so you don't actually recognize it. And what happens is that within us, a lot of people talk about this as the observer, the witness, the soul, our essence that actually exists within the human body that creates space for us to have awareness. So when we're very busy up here with the mind, when we're very busy doing and we haven't slowed down enough to hear ourselves, we're not actually creating space to allow new things to pop in, to allow clarity to emerge, right? We can ponder and we can think and we can do all of those wonderful things. But if you don't take that moment to create that space, then actually the observer, the witness, your soul isn't able to then help you, right? Have these amazing awarenesses. And from that awareness, what then happens is that depending on your identity and how you exist in the world will depend on how you interpret that awareness, right? So who you be in the world as the person, the human who is having this experience will be determined by this, the awareness that you're having, what your beliefs are, what your story, your mind is actually telling you. And so what we want to do is actually look at this and say, well, hang on a moment. As I'm moving through the bit in the middle, and I've now asking the question, what's next, right? Am I creating space for awareness? Am I creating space that allows clarity to emerge? Or am I trying to fight it? Am I trying to resist it? Because if you're in fight mode, your nervous system is going to say, brace, brace, right? She's in fight mode or he's in fight mode and nope. Everything starts to shut down so that you become protected because you are human, right? So what we want to do is actually understand that this is perfectly normal to feel all the feelings as we move through the bit in the middle. It's perfectly normal to ask all of the questions, and it may start off feeling heavy. It may start off as feeling lost, as feeling stuck. It may start off as lack of clarity, right? Or this urge to want to do something more. Like you want to maybe go and have fun. Maybe you want to go and do a photo shoot. Maybe you want to kind of just try something different. Maybe you want to reach out to somebody, right? And all of those things start to emerge in the bit in the middle. But because you are so busy trying to resolve this one thing, you're not actually allowing this awareness then to come into your space. So my suggestion here is always go for a walk, go paint, go create. If that's something you like to do, if it means going and having a good conversation on a coffee with somebody, if it means, showering somebody else with love, if it means, me time, so facials, manicures, whatever it is, right? You go do it, right? Because if you don't create that space for you, yourself, then that awareness is going to sit there waiting for the moment that it can show itself to you, right? And then what ends up happening is that as the mind starts to kind of interpret where you're at, it's actually going to start sort of questioning and saying, is this something that you really want to do? Are you sure you want to do this, right? Or do you want to go back over here because it's safe? But actually back over here is what's next, right? And this is the moment where we have to stand up to our wonderfully protective mind and say to it, look, Thank you very much for showing this to me. I understand what it is that why you're saying this to me, but right now I need this space in order to be able to allow what's coming next. Yeah. And it feels sticky. It feels like, lots of thoughts are coming in. It feels like sometimes you can't breathe. It can sometimes feel very frustrating, anger, like all of these kind of signs that showing that something is trying to emerge, but right now it's feeling constricted and it really, really wants to come out. Tears is another one. Your body will knows how to express that to you. And if you know your human design energy type, by the way, you have not signatures for when you're in alignment and when you are not. So, for example, as if you are a manifester, you will feel peace when you are aligned, you will feel anger when you are not. So, if you have moments of feeling incredibly frustrated, if you feel moments where you are having outbursts, then that is literally something within you asking to have clarity. It is asking for it to come out, it is feedback, and it is saying to you, something isn't right here. Just pause, allow this awareness to come in, create the space, right? Feel that it's uncomfortable, okay? Acknowledge how your body is feeling and then start to move it into the body from the mind. So we're so busy saying to the mind, actually, you know what? You're good. Cheers for telling me that. And that's really good of you. But right now, I'm just going to take this into my body and I'm going to feel it. I'm going to feel that I feel frustrated. I'm going to feel that I want to cry. And if you want to cry, cry, right? I'm going to feel how my body's actually responding to this. And then what we start to do is we then start to say to our body, I am safe. I am loved. In this moment, everything is always working out for me. In this moment, I acknowledge that this is part of my story, right? I am allowing the space for things to move through me. I am not defined by the way that my body is feeling in this moment. And you start to say these kind of comfort type phrases. Now, I've discovered that personally from my language, when I talk in story language, so when I talk about the human story, when I talk about rather than having ownership of things or being a steward of things, when I talk about chapters and seasons and things like that, my nervous system completely softens. It likes that language, which is why I talk about it an awful lot. It's also very aligned to my projector energy type and also my blueprint. So because I understand that, I then learned very, very quickly kind of what is the language that my body actually softens and soothes to, right? And therefore, when it soothes and softens to it, it starts to believe it, right? Which means that the beliefs that we then start creating are then lived out through our actions, right? So what happens is then we'll start taking different steps. We'll start noticing different things. We may start to be brave enough to kind of even, do something as simple as a friend of mine told me a few days ago. We'd done a belief coding session and she messaged me straight away and she said, I decided the next day that I'm going to use a different mug for my coffee. She'd been using the same mug for a very, very long time. She'd bought this mug and it had been sitting in the cupboard since December, and she just decided that she wanted to use a different mug, right? That is a change in her identity, saying it is safe to want something new. But she only got there because she created the space. She acknowledged the story her mind was telling her. She then took the beliefs and understood what they meant in her body, and then she gave it a new story, right? And then what happens is that when we then create this new story, it's then expressed through the way that we show up in the world, through what people call our identity. So you'll make different decisions, like the mug story, right? You'll start to feel more comfortable, maybe even more confident in things. You will have clarity around certain things as well, right? And then the environment will start to respond back to you because, oh, he or she is now doing something different. So therefore, the environment's now going to reflect that back to you. And I love this quote because it's of the universal law of correspondence, right? As within, so without. And I love it because if the word so without is actually ancient, it's ancient English, think of it like that, right? And we have taken that to mean over the years that I am without, I am missing something, there is lack. But actually, so without generally means outside of you. If what is balanced is in here, then it is reflected out there, right? That is what you attract. If you are chaotic in here, then you will see chaos out there. If you are calm, stable, feeling secure in here, then you will see stability, you will see opportunities, you will feel calm in the people that you surround yourself with and the life that you are living, right? As within, so without. And so the bit in the middle is actually this journey. It's this journey from taking something that says, what's next? And you feel confusion and you almost allow yourself to feel the confusion, but you must not stop, right? You must not kind of freeze and loop, because sometimes people will loop in the bit in the middle, go over and over and over and over again because they can't see the exits. And the reason they can't see the exit is because they have not created the space to allow the awareness, to allow the soul to do its job, right? And to not have the trust in the process that actually, you know what, this is normal. This is part of the human experience, is part of my story. And if you need evidence, look back at your life. Look back at the times that you have had moments of lack of clarity where you're not sure, you are questioning, you're wanting to figure something out. And then look at what's happened. Look at the moments where you have figured it out, right? I've personally discovered that frustration for me is very interesting, because when I get frustrated, I can feel it. My whole body tightens and it's almost like I can't breathe. And I've learned now to actually take myself off to my lovely sofa behind there, and I will literally do belief coding work from a self-facilitation point of view. I will go into myself, I will find where that belief actually was created, and I will do the work in that moment, because that then releases the frustration and clarity then emerges, right? So for example, this video, I wanted so much to create this video this morning, and I just sat here for ages doing everything but the video until I caught myself and I was like, why am I doing everything but the video? I've been gifted free time this morning, some meetings got cancelled, and I really just wanted to show up. Now, one of my biggest wounds has been visibility. It's my ability to show up. I've had, been visible in front of millions and millions of people, and I've experienced in many different ways what that has meant. And my body, my system shut down for many years because it wanted to keep me safe. So it kept me what I call small. And it kept me small because I wanted to keep me small. I wanted to control. I wanted to keep myself safe. And so I looped for many years. I was in the bit in the middle, always asking what's next. So I'd enter the bit in the middle and then I would loop. I would write, I would get all the notebooks, I would have all the ideas. But what I wouldn't then do is then integrate all of that into my body and actually allow me to feel the things I need to feel. And then reprogram, rescript essentially safety into my body around visibility, right? And this is why you're seeing more and more from me now, because actually I'm not tiptoeing out into the world. I'm actually now launching back out into the world. And I'm doing it with something I'm very passionate about, something that I've taken a very long time to actually acquire the knowledge and skills for. And as I'm moving through this, despite having done the work, there are moments like today that kind of say, oh, hang on, Effie, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you kind of want to go out into the world and be visible? And it's like, yeah, I do. And so the moment I caught myself doing it, I was like, why am I looking over, why am I doing everything but this video? And then of course my mind started going, well, what are you going to talk about? You don't know what you're going to talk about. You haven't got the words, you haven't got the language. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I do have the language, I do have the words. Thanks for that. But no, I can feel that I'm calm. I can feel that I'm safe. I'm really happy to kind of do this video and I want to. And so I just got on the video and press record and here we are, right? And this is what allows you to move through the bit in the middle. I took action. I took the next step. I caught myself in the moment where I was experiencing the muddle, right? I acknowledged the muddle. I created the space very quickly to kind of go, well, hang on a minute, why is this happening? Ah, okay. I had the awareness that I'm literally trying to stop myself from doing the video because I wanted to keep myself safe. And actually, I then decided that, you know what? I'm going to take a different action, because if I had taken the same action, I would have carried on looping and I would not have created the video. But I sat here and I was like, I can create the video. Like, it's a really cool thing to do and I want to really do this. So I opened my Zoom, pressed record, and here I am. I took a different action. And then from the next step, what will happen is this video will then go onto YouTube, wherever it is I'm going to put it, and it will go out and the environment will respond to it, right? I'll put it out into the world and allow the right environment to respond to it. And so that is the cycle. that happens with the bit in the middle. And for some people, that work will take, you know, moments. Sometimes it could take weeks, months, etc. It depends how big the what next is. It depends how big you feel that particular chapter that you are trying to look at is to you, and whether you are prepared to do the work, right? This is not, I think sometimes I fear that sometimes we make this complicated, or that we start from a place of low expression, when actually everything about you in this moment is the highest expression of who you are. The person you are today, no matter what you feel about that person, is loved, is love, right? That person has a story that is worth telling. That person is part of the human story. You are contributing to every chapter, every season. And despite what's going on in the world around us, you have the ability to control your response. You have the ability to choose how you want to feel in the moment, and also to do the work that is necessary in order to allow the next expression of yourself to bloom forward, right? So I hope this video is helpful. I will do more videos that talk about it in more depth. That's, but I hope that it was coherent in some form. And that it's becoming slightly clearer in terms of what the bit in the middle is. But I invite you to ask any questions. If you want to message me, if you want to pop comments down below, you are very welcome. I'm always delighted to hear from everybody. If it's work that you yourself want to do as well, then please reach out. It's definitely something I can help you with. Whilst my work tends to focus on founders, that does not mean that my work does not extend, and it has often extended to other areas in people's lives. Even from a founder perspective, I'm not just looking at the business. I'm always, always, always looking at the founder and everything that you are, because I believe and love people, and I believe that actually if we could get back to who we truly are and allow that self to emerge and define what that next chapter is going to look like, and be brave enough to go into that chapter, that actually we would have more joy, more love, we would flourish, we would be able to balance the feminine and the masculine energetics, and we would create something for our lives, for our relationships, even in parenting, business, whatever it is, that we would feel really proud of. So that's where I'm at. As I said, I welcome you to share your comments and any questions. And if you'd like to reach out, please let me know. But I wish you a wonderful day ahead. Take care, everybody, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye.